These are the big transits coming up in the month of August. We're already on August 4th, but there's so many things happening in this month that we need to sit and talk about it all so that you can be braced for impact. Let's take a look. Mars enters Libra on August 6th, and that's the first big one that we've got coming up. They're all big things are happening. I can't say that anything is bigger than the other because they're all pretty big. But here's Mars right here on the cusp entering from Virgo, and we have been feeling Mars in Virgo for the past month or so, and it's been manifesting in us as sort of this desire to sort out our lives and get very detailed about our progress and how things are going to work. It's about, cleaning the fridge. It's about sweeping the floor and paying the bills and getting everything dusted off inside the mind so that we have clarity about our purpose when we are now ready to begin moving forward into that purpose. We have at least cleansed the environment. I mean, that's a principle of magical work, right? Which is the banishing. And before the banishing, you clean. Don't skip that step. I skip it all the time. It screws me up. Clean your space. That's the physical banishing of substance from your space. And then you do the mental banishing of substance from the mental space with the banishing work. So that is kind of what Virgo is very good at doing, banishing all these elements that we don't want to have in our lives anymore, that we want to clear out, that we want to get sorted, that we want to have in order. The process of discernment applied to the things in our lives. That was Mars in Virgo, and now we are entering August 6th, the new sign of Libra. Mars struggles a little bit in Libra. It's in its fall, and the sun is in its detriment in Libra. And I like to think of Libra as the LA of the zodiac. You got that sun that's in this lazy kind of haze over the beach. That's a Libra sun. And a Mars Libra is your celebrity lawyer, your agent, your talent agent, who knows all the rules and is trying to find this balance between all these contractual obligations. It's a system of law. It's also a system of aesthetics, which are both, governed by harmony in a sense. Venus governs all of these traits and qualities: music, film, beauty, art, but also law and contracts and these sort of things. So it's like, a system of cooperation and harmonization. And Mars is here. Mars is here in this realm, trying to really get stuff done like it does. But it's in the domicile of Venus, so it's struggling. It only has Venus's tools to do Mars's work, and so it's trying to get things done through this legalistic process. It's trying to get things done through the social order. It's trying to get things done in that sense. It's bringing the fire and heat of Mars, but it can't go directly to war for itself because it's constrained by all these systems of these aesthetic, legalistic systems that bind it, and that's the nature of being in Libra. It's this balance. We must strike this balance. We must have this dualistic nature. We have to hold back. We have to go to war, but we have to hold back in the process of doing that. So we're trying to navigate our way through this process, but that is also how we think about these processes. It's kind of like applying the will from that Virgo cleansing, right? That banishing state that we have done. And now we're trying to get things done, but we have to figure out how to put everything into order so that they all harmonize in a way that helps them create the machinery of movement. And then when we get to Scorpio, we're going to design the experience. when Mars gets to Virgo, we're going to design the experience of what we want to create. But now we are doing this kind of figuring out what it is exactly and how does it operate and all that sort of stuff. Just the mechanics, kind of a way. Because a mechanism is a harmony of forces at work. It's an equilibrium. So that is happening on the 6th, and it will start to move. And yeah, anyway, a lot of fortune is here, but this is just a little cast that I had to do based on a specific time so I could get this chart, because I wanted to look at the Egyptian boundaries, which I have been looking at more and more. I've been very concerned about what boundary system or bound lords or terms, I should say, they're also called terms, which of these is most advisable, because there's so many different divisions of the different sections of the signs, and what I'm finding is a lot of validity to this Egyptian thing, so I'm exploring that. Let's explore it together. It goes back it has a long history. It's certainly very rooted, and I'm very curious about it because it's so asymmetric and weird. Like look at this boundary here of Venus into Pisces. It's so long compared to like this one and this one, so tiny. Like it's clearly like not based on just some systematic application of thought to the process. It's almost a process of observation of what these areas feel like and in their expression of planetary power when it moves through those signs. Which it is when you look at the Hellenistic process and the Egyptian process. It was Babylonians, Mesopotamian astrology, it was based on the observations of the priestly class. Looking at the effects on the world. Here's what happens when this is happening here. This is how long it tends to last. Anyway. Mars, when it enters, Mars has been making this aspect in the chart for a while, but it's beginning to perfect as it moves into Libra. And this is the grand trine that is happening here. It is a grand Air Sign Trine. All right. So this is a flow, an energetic flow between this point Mars, this point of Uranus, and this point of Pluto in the air signs, which is thought and the societies, the structures of society, and the mediation of communication and that sort of stuff. And we have this rebellious energy. We've got this intensifying energy. We've got Mars. Doing its Martian things, in this early term of Libra, which is very Saturnian in nature. So we have this very melancholic Mars as it moves into Libra. It's almost like, oh, I don't even know how to operate in this space. I need to be cold and deductive and reasoning and logical. And it's having this flow of energy that is trying to create a space of freedom by acting in sort of rebellious ways against the system that's being imposed on it. It's trying to make changes in the system. It's like this lawyer, like this John Grisham sort of lawyer who is trying to work against the system. And it's up against very intense powers, and it comes up against its own intensity. Like it even has to deal with its own intensity with that Plutonic energy in Aquarius. So it's very intense. It's intensity. And it's also forming a kite, you'll notice, which is quite cool, I think. Not only do we have this grand air sign trine happening, but it's also a kite. And so the kite has the sextiles, 2 sextiles here, the trine on this end, and then this other trine in between. And this opposition kind of defines it, of course, that runs straight through the kite. And there's an opposition is between Mars and Saturn. And it's kind of pointing like a bow and arrow towards the Saturn energy. It's this transit that we've had and that we're dealing with. It's the biggest transit, really, that's happening right now, kind of, is the Saturn in retrograde, Neptune beginning its retrograde back towards Pisces, in Aries. And that is this energy of Saturn trying to structure, and Neptune, the image of reality. It's reality and the image of reality, attempting to restructure one another in a certain sense, because the image of reality can dissolve reality. We see that through propaganda and narrative, that the image of reality dissolves reality. But also the structures of reality form the image of reality. And so that is the nature of this conjunction, it's sort of like an orbit. It's like a binary orbit of Neptune and Saturn as they kind of act in this sort of wax on, wax off kind of scrubbing motion at the early degrees of Aries on the cardinal sign. So it's about a recreation of kind of everything, because Aries is the beginning. Aries is the beginning cycle of the cosmos, essentially. It's the beginning of spring. It's the beginning of things. It's the beginning. It is the cardinal sign of cardinal signs. It's Aries. It's that fire, the initiating fire of the cosmos. And so we're restructuring this identity of self through Saturnian energy and Neptunian energy, rewriting each other over and over again in this binary dance. And then on the opposite side of it all is Mars. And Mars is looking across the zodiac. It's in its opposition. So there's a tension, a polarity, and trying to find what the synergistic point of those two movements is. When you have these opposing motions, what forces occur? In the center, a shearing force. It is, oppositions are said to be in the nature of Saturn. So that can be a shearing or compressing force. Compressing it down into a kind of heat. Pressurized environment. So we have this force, sort of legalistic force of Mars trying to find its way to operate towards a new kind of future. So Mars is approaching that point on the other side of the zodiac of redefining the fundamental structure of self, redefining the fundamental structure of our experience, our place in the world. So we're trying to apply force to this reinvention, because so far, and honestly, there is some frustration occurring between these two forces, as they have been creating and then backing out of reality, creating reality and then dissolving it. Like, I think about the way that Trump and the Epstein thing has been playing out, where he used that as the way to get elected and saying, hey, Epstein files, we're going to release them. And now he's like, oh no, Epstein files, we're not going to release those. What are you, crazy? That's the Saturnian force, and then being erased by that Neptunian force, and then trying to use this as the new reality. We're never gonna. It's nothing there. There's nothing really to it. What are you talking about? Why are you still talking about that guy? It's real weird gaslighting energy, because we're still trying to figure out what reality is, where we are in this reality. So we're trying to apply a force to it. Mars is trying to apply some force to kind of figure it all out. It's difficult from that Libra position, but it's kind of necessary because you have to approach this with some delicacy. You can't go hammering into that space of illusion and reconstruction. It's too fragile. It's just gonna bust down. We're trying to figure out how to utilize this and utilize that energy. All right. That's that kite. That's what that kite is like. That kite is a very fascinating energy. It's going to persist for a little bit, and then Mars is going to exit that space and move on its journey through Libra. All right, the next transit that we're going to be looking at is the full moon in Aquarius. That's happening on August 8th, August 9th. You're going to be feeling that energy happening. It's a bit of a precursor to all the lunar activities that are coming after this, which is the new moon in Virgo, and then the eclipse that occurs after that in Pisces. So, this is your precursor full moon to all of those next precipitous events, and this is about getting yourself ready for how those happen. This is about getting yourself ready and prepared for set up for the new moon. Have things prepared and cleansed and worked out so that, because that's going to be in Virgo at 0 degrees. So we want to be prepared for the Virgo energy. Come correct to Virgo. And then that will prepare you for that Piscean lunar eclipse. Because you'll be ready. You'll have the things in order. You'll have your house in order. All right. So full moon in Aquarius. It's over here at 14 degrees of Aquarius in the bounds of Jupiter, which is nice. It's a nice little place to be for a full moon, to be shining brightly and getting this all out. We're kind of releasing our emotional state, for in one sense, in the modern sense, and in the ancient sense we are paying our karmic debts, which is sort of, I guess, another way of saying release. But we have things to be paid on the full moon in the ancient system, in the Hellenistic system. We have services to provide. We have energies to get out. We have dues that come up, energetic, emotional dues that must be paid in the form of expression. So this space is about moving on, looking at our lives and understanding what it is that we need to detach from. Do that Aquarian detachment so we can look back at it, the clear-sighted swords, mental energy. We are looking at our emotions through that lens, almost like the jeweler's loop. We're looking at it with some detachment from some kind of space, some mediation. And we're looking at our emotional state, but it's also blown up quite big because this is Jupiter. So we really see the big map, the big picture of ourselves. It's the big picture, and we are able to look at that, at the big picture, big emotional map of ourselves, and say, these are the points that need to be removed. I need to release these. I need to move on from this place. I'm here. I need to move on and get over here. So I'm going to leave here. I'm going to pack my bags and get ready to move. That's what this Aquarian energy is. And it's not, because of that Jupiter space there, this decan is ruled by the Six of Swords, which is that moving on energy. We are crossing the river now. But with Jupiter there's some sense of we're moving to greater opportunity. We're moving on to greater opportunity. There's this very intense mystic rectangle kind of happening here. This is about calling forward a kind of intuition of these spaces, of these energies, which is that dissolution and restructuring of reality. It's Mercury over here, beginning to come out of retrograde. It's which is our expression of our new reality, and the fight to create it, and the intensity that all that entails. Within that boundary of psychological space, our intuition is quite sharpened. Looks like a little letter that we want to mail to Santa Claus. August the 8th is also the Lion's Gate 8-8. If you are into that, I'm a little bit skeptical, but it is the point at which the Sun and Sirius are in alignment in the east, in the rising of the Sun in the east. This is the period that marks the beginning of the new year in the Egyptian calendar and the flooding of the Nile, so it's kind of about abundance, but Sirius also has a long history in esoteric traditions of being associated with the occult itself, with magic, and we now associate magic with manifestation in our modern capitalistic thinking, but Sirius is the star, is often looked at as sort of the ascendant master of magic. It is sort of the spirit guide, the holy guardian angel. It was Crowley who said that his holy guardian angel was associated with Sirius. I was. So there are strong associations with Sirius and magic. And during this time, there is this Kazemi that is happening with the Sun as it floods through. It's purified. The light of Sirius is purified through the star of the Sun and amplified across everything that the Sun sees. It's like casting its light. That is, it's taking Sirius's light and casting it out onto the world. So we are getting this very serious energy all throughout everything, and it could be very potent. It's as though the veil becomes very thin in a sense, because you become very aware of the magical essence and nature of reality itself. So here we are at this point of release, payment forward of the new moon, feeling the intensity of our emotions and feeling this connection of magical reality as well, of the permeability of reality, the malleability of reality. We're sitting very close to that nature, exposed nature of the world. So there's some great potential. A little bit confusing whether or not you have the capacity to manifest in the glamour of the full moon or not. Do as you will, see what happens. Fuck it. Magic is experimentation after all. Next major transit that is happening, the event of significance in August, is August the 11th, and we have some super fun stuff happening on this day. This is quite magnificent, I think. I always say that, and then I am sometimes surprised by what really happens. So here we have Mercury at last going direct. And this is the end of the Mercury retrograde that we have been under since mid-July, in Leo. So this is really about a review, a recall of things we have said, done, our examination of how we've put ourselves out there and how we've been seen and that sort of thing. We've been experiencing that. And now it finally goes direct again. And all that backwards-looking energy can kind of clarify. And we can start looking forward again. and we can start making things happen a little bit easier. We can start new things without really tripping over all the old photo albums and stuff. You know what I mean? And then over here in the sign of Cancer, we have Mercury sneaking up and conjoining Jupiter, from being the big spoon to Jupiter's little spoon. And it is in the process of conjoining as it traverses the zodiac, the ecliptic here. It is informing Jupiter in a sense of how to perform its duties there. It's sort of like whispering in its ear. And it's in this Cancerian house. They're both in the Cancerian house. So they're in this very secure, cozy, and, oceanic kind of mansion. And it's aquatic in nature and quiet, and there's a restful, embracing nature to it all. And Venus is here saying, let us give more love and harmony to our philosophy, our ways of thinking, our methods of evolution and expansion. Are we doing these out of love, or are we doing these out of some need to evolve because we want to 10x our income, or whatever the fuck things we're doing in 2025? What are we doing? We're doing crazy things, like trying to maximize our viewer counts and likes and comments. Are we evolving from the right place, is the question in Cancer. Is this making us safer? And now we can see with some clarity, and stop perhaps performing because we're trying to gain some sort of approval, some sort of accolade that we think we deserve from what we're approaching with. Now we can see with clarity, are we approaching all of these actions that we're taking? Are we approaching communication from a space of love? This is happening because that Mercury is going direct. There's not necessarily a conjunction. In fact, they're kind of averse to each other. It's sort of happening in independence, but because they're all happening in a totality, that's going to feel that way in a certain sense. And when there aren't really any strong aspects here. So this conjunction of Venus and Jupiter is also, having an impact on this kite that we were discussing earlier, and this grand air sign. Not through an aspect necessarily, but in the fact that we're feeling all of these things all simultaneously. This attempt to redefine self, and this attempt to approach our own philosophy from a place of love and compassion and balance. We're trying to reevaluate ourselves and our own philosophy, our own approach to life, our own doctrine of living, in a sense. So we are in a total reevaluation of reality and of ourselves and how we live in reality and how we're supposed to live in reality. No big deal. We're just completely reinventing everything all the time. That's it. Nope. Are you tired? Is it because you're reinventing everything all the time, including yourself and the way you think and how you approach life? And life is reinventing itself right from out from under you. Is that why you're tired? You think? Maybe so. We also have this opposition as Mercury exits its retrograde. It kind of opens its eyes and it's looking right across at Pluto. It's like you've been driving through the tunnel, and looking at your maps and trying to figure out where you've been, and looking at old texts and trying to figure things out, and you look up finally, and in front of you is the semi truck with its lights on headed towards you, and here comes big old Pluto looking you right in the eyes and being like, hey, this is really intense. Big things are happening on this side of the world. Get yourself right and look over here, and let's start thinking intensely about it as Mercury begins its approach towards Pluto. It's moving towards it now as it moves through the zodiac in this time of the year after this retrograde. Now it's moving. That's the point of the opposition. It demarcates the point at which it begins to move forward. So it's moving towards Pluto and having to understand how it's going to make that approach. So it's looking at it. How are we going to approach this intensity, this intense change that is happening in society? We're waking up to that concept that it has to happen. So now we're going to start approaching the sun, going into Casimi, and all that sort of nonsense. That is all considerations around the 11th. The next one of note is on August 23rd, and that is the new moon. Happy snappy, happening in Virgo at 0 degrees of Virgo. And this is some pure Virgo snow. So we are in the darkness approaching this space. But we have done our banishing, our cleansing, we have cleared the space, and now we have the draft table wiped off and ready to begin building. What are we going to be building? We should have been figuring it out by this point, because now we're starting. We're putting our manifestations into the world, and we are getting paid. That contractual karmic contract is getting paid to us now. We paid in, now it pays out, and we're getting to take our paycheck and go to the candy store and figure out what we want. We're going to the grocery store, we're going to buy stuff to make a lasagna. You know what I mean? We're manifesting in this space, creating it, making it real. So we have to know what that has been in our approach. And that's part of that review process that we've been in, this recollection, the review that we've gone through of Mercury in its retrograde. I'm tired. The moon has gone through Mercury and Venus and Jupiter, and it has collected these energies as well. So it's, as it comes to this, we're also feeling that Venusian, Jupiterian, Mercurial energy releasing back out. I'm sorry, it's not releasing. It's manifesting. Now it's understanding how to put it all into effect. So that is what we're doing. And we're doing this because we know that coming up on the other side of this lunar transit is going to go into Pisces. And in the early decan of Pisces, in that Venus boundary, we're going to have the next full moon, which will be coincident with the eclipse. It will be on the north. It'll be on the nodes by that point. It will be on the nodes. So we will have our eclipse, and that is the ethereal cosmic disruption of events. It is the disruption of the ordinary. So we want to have a clear sense of where we're going before we get disrupted from all of it. So we can re-engage back after it. And maybe this disruption clears the way for the manifestation to occur. It's going to have us recall back themes that were happening during the eclipses earlier in this year, in March, during all those titanic shifts that were happening. If you recall, and that was like Venus retrograde through Aries. It was Mars retrograde and moving through Cancer, and it was some very difficult transits and Venus sitting on Chiron, and we're kind of having a release of the energies of that period. Whatever energies were happening during that eclipse period before are coming back in their new completed, digested form, a maturity of them, I suppose you could say. But it's still disruptive to have these things occur, come suddenly roaring back into our lives a little bit. So that's going to be a thing. But that's in September. That's in later of September. So let's not stress about it too much, but we're getting ourselves ready in this process to endure what's coming. And that's what astrology is all about. Survival. Thanks for watching.